to talk about, I want to continue with what we were doing last time, which is setting up a program so that it will speak to you. And I also want to add in a second program where you speak to the computer. And I'll show you how this thing works. To begin with, let me just draw some diagrams here. I've had a little trouble. I've been doing a lot of email exchanges here. I want to be sure that these ideas are clear. I made a video for it, which I'll show you later, but there are some things that we do that are kind of like futzy little things. You have to do this, you have to do that, just to get things ready. This is not going to continue during the whole semester. There's certain things we have to get organized. And one of them is we have to get the icon for Chrome on the desktop, and it has to contain, you have to go to its properties and you have to change the properties of it, okay? And I'm going to show you about that before this is over, but that's what we have to do. That's one of the things we have to do. And the reason for that is because some of the programs we use Google's programs which have stuff online, and it has to be able to talk to that stuff. So if you run a program in your machine and you don't have specific addresses for things, it'll say I can't find something. If in other words, if the things are online, and if you use some of Chrome's routines, they call them methods, if you use some of their functions, what will happen is it won't be able to access those functions online because it doesn't have the authority to do it. They don't like to have your machine be able to reach out online through the browser because it risks, it's a security risk there. So what happens is we have to actually put something into Chrome to say when we're running one of your special little programs, it's okay to go out and get the stuff for it, okay? And that's something we have to do. But here's the interesting thing about that. If that same program was up on somebody's server and you ran it, it would run fine because it's already online and it's already got access to things online, okay? If you have it in your machine and it needs that stuff, it won't run. So you have to say to Chrome, allow us to run this thing when it's located in our machine. And the reason why we have to do that is because in order for you to debug a program you just wrote, you have to run it in your machine a bunch of times. If every program you wrote, you uploaded, tested it up there, then you wouldn't have to do that. But that's a lot of work. So it's much easier to get the program running in your machine and then upload it to your site than it is to put it up there and try to debug it up there. Okay, to begin with, what I do, I list out these programs on the website, and I've listed out some programs where where the program talks to you. You give us some information. It might have an if statement or an index of or something, and we'll look for words that you say, and then it will talk back to you. There's about 4 or 5 of them up there that do that kind of thing, and that kind of cleans up. If you look at them, they're all quite simple, and it kind of cleans up what the voice synthesizer does for you. It talks to you, okay? Except for one thing. It's possible to get the synthesizer to speak in different languages, which we can't do with ours. With ours, what it does is there's an English-speaking person, American-speaking person, that speaks the words to you in American, okay? But it is possible to have German, French, Italian, Japanese, everything, every possible major language. The question is how to do that. And I'll explain to you how I did. I had to do it because it was kind of not accessible the way we do it normally. What I did was, I took Google has these functions that are kind of, to tell the voice whether it's to be, have a certain accent, or to be male or female, or to be, it has various characteristics that you can change. And so what I had to do was I had to take all those things and put them into a little function that I made decisions about what we wanted. In other words, we only wanted a handful of languages, so I put those in. And then I put down, I said use the default voice, which means if they have a default as a woman, it'll use that. If it defaults as a male voice, they'll use that. So whatever voices we get are just basically their defaults, okay? I didn't want to get into the position of having to adjust those things, and I'll tell you why. Because at this point, even now, these things are still in a state of experimentation. The programs we're running are actually leftovers from when Google was getting ready to work with the phones, the telephones. So in other words, these phones that talk back and forth originally experimented with these programs we're in now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of the fact they experimented on regular computers, and we're going to take this stuff and we're going to call it. We're going to say something, or we're going to say something to it that's going to tell us what we said. In other words, we can talk to it, it can talk to us, just like cell phones do, except that we're going to be using sort of a lower version of that, and there's some limitations on it. One of the limitations is they don't let you talk forever. They only allow you to talk for a short period of time, then they cut you off, and then you have to turn it back on again. But you can do that automatically. You can tell the computer when they disconnect, just turn it back on again. But you have to go through a little rigmarole because they basically don't want a gazillion people turning on the talking part and just letting it hang there, and their programs are saying, did they say anything? And so in other words, you type their computer processors doing this, because voice stuff takes a lot of processing. It's very heavy-duty stuff. So essentially what they want to do is they want people to use it, play with it a little bit, experiment with it. And then, if you really want to use it, there is a way of using it permanently, and I'll show you what that is. But we can't do it in this class because you have to have permissions on your server to actually make it extend it beyond the short time they have. So here's what I did. I make the program, I design them in such a way that you turn them on, you talk, you do blah, 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 and then it loses interest in you and shuts you off, okay? I put a button there. When you push that button, it reactivates the thing and starts it back up again. It's a little bit of a nuisance, but it's the best we can do under the circumstances that we don't have official use of these programs. There's nothing wrong with using them. It's not like we're cheating anybody, but they basically want people to use them, but it would be available otherwise. Okay, let's begin with the program we've already used, the one where it talks to you. Okay, and the code. Let's see if the code is the same as what I did before. No, I changed the code. Okay, the ones that the synthesizer we've used up to this point has two functions in it. One function sets up the voice and puts it in message, and the other one says that whatever's in message. That's those two functions, right? You remember those two from last class? But they're online and they're in the programs from last class. Okay, what I'm going to do is, this is where I had to make a change. Instead of just calling those two functions, which we could do, but they'd only speak with American accents, what I wanted to do is I wanted to go right straight to Google and say, let's change a couple of things here. Let's change it to a foreign accent, okay? And so, in other words, what I'm doing now is I wrote this program in such a way that instead of just saying, here's some words, say it for me, instead of doing that, it says, here's some words, send it up to Google, put it in a different language, and say it for me. It doesn't translate, by the way, it just translates the accents, that's all it does. We can do translations, but it translates the accents. So in other words, it'll take the same expression, it'll say it with an Italian accent, or a German, or a British, or whatever accent, different accent. But the reason why it says it in those accents is because if you put the actual language up there, if I put French words up on the screen, if I typed them in instead of English words, it would say them perfectly. For example, if I put in French words, and I pressed the button that says, have the Frenchman speak, and they would say it perfectly in French, because they're not just impersonating the accent. What they're doing is they're trying to say their language. And when they read stuff, they try to read it as if they would be reading it in their own language. That's what I'm talking about, the voice now. So the first step in this thing is to introduce you to an idea called an include file. And it's a very peculiar thing to what we've been doing so far. What we're doing at this point is we write a front page, and then we have a button on the front page, and it goes up to our function, and it does stuff, okay? Well, it turns out you can have other functions in your program that you can't even see, but they're there. And the way you do that is you take this file, which contains those functions, and you insert them in your program. So in other words, you have one line of code that says, put this file in your program. So invisible to you, but they're really there, are suddenly a bunch of functions that you don't see, but you can call them. You can say, do this, do that, do the other thing, because those functions are built in. So what I've done is I've set up these little include files, so that you just add that in. Now you have the capacity to do things you couldn't do before. You don't have to have the functions to do them. If you had to write them, I'll show you later, they would be very long functions. And in the case of our graphic stuff later in this course, they would be so enormous you can't even believe it. They're huge functions. But they're just, all you have to do is put one line in. That's all you need. And then you can call functions within that file. You can call them. And that's what gives us the power to do stuff that otherwise we'd have to write the code for, and it would be impossible, because it's like three CS courses. You got to learn the language, you got to learn how to sophisticate it, then you have to learn the specific application. So we're cutting everything off here and getting it down to just how an easy breezy program can be written by us that does very complex stuff. We'll be doing video, we'll be doing three-dimensional graphics, we'll be doing all kinds of stuff that you just could not conceive of if you were actually writing the code, okay? And I'm not actually preventing you from doing more things. All this simply does is it gives you an into the thing. If you want to do more, we can do that too. But at this point, in just introducing it to you, I don't want you to have to get burdened down with a bunch of computer science. It's not necessary at this juncture, okay? So here's what's going to happen. This program here, instead of just me being able to say, tell it to say a bunch of words by an English-speaking person, it's going to say a bunch of words by people with different languages. I'm only going to put two of them here, but basically I'll give you the idea, and then I'll show you later on the computer, I'll show you how it actually works. Okay, to begin with, let's say you have, let's say your screen looks like this. And there's a big window here that you type into, okay? And supposing down here you have a couple of buttons. Let's say this button is in, I'll just put two buttons here. This button here is in French. You know, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger because people online are not able to read these words. So I'm gonna make these a little bigger than they normally are. And German. I'm just picking these two randomly. And so these are two buttons right here. One button says French, and the other button says German. So what you do is you type stuff in here, okay, whatever it is, and then when you press the French button, it'll say that stuff. If it's in French, it'll say it perfectly in French. If it's in English, it'll say it in English with a French accent, like somebody moved in next door and they can't quite grab English. Same with the German. Whatever you type here, it will, if you press that button, it'll try to say it with a German accent, and if it's German, it'll say it impeccably, and if it's in English, it'll just do its best, okay? And that's what this program does. It's very simple. Okay, so in other words, you type stuff in here, then you press either this button or this button, and it will say the stuff. The voice will say it. It will say it to you. Okay? So let's do it. To begin with, you have to let's do the stuff I usually do. HTML and head right here. Now here's the weird part. We have programs in JavaScript, and we say script language equals JavaScript. And then the bottom we have /script. And all of our JavaScript is in between these two, sandwiched between these two lines. This other thing that we're going to use is also JavaScript. But when we type it in, we say this thing is JavaScript also, but it has its own script and its own /script. I actually added it in the beginning because I want it to be up there so that we know immediately this include file has got to be there. So you put it in right away and you know it's there. So I usually put it right in the head, the beginning of the head right here. And it looks like this. I'll try to write it as clearly as possible so that you'll be able to read it. It's a script, same thing, script, just like we did before. This time what it says is type, the word type, equals, text / JavaScript. Source, src, equals, and this is file right here. It's called lingo.js, and it goes like so. And then here I've got /script. See, that's an entire script. It starts here, that's the script, blah, 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 blah. Then it's /script, it shuts it off again. So in other words, this whole thing right here is one line, and that's the line that you have to put in. This source right here, this lingo.js, is a file that you have to have in your same folder as the program you're now writing, because it has to call something in there. Now let me show you what Lingo is all about. Lingo is actually, it's a file, okay? It's a JavaScript file. And it looks like this. It's a JavaScript file. And what it has in it, it has functions. It has a function here, and a function here, different functions. And in your program, you can call those functions. I call this one or call this one. In other words, even though you haven't written them, they're there for you to use. So in other words, this file right here, this function, which is called lingo.js, it's a file that contains a bunch of functions that are available to you that you can call, just like you normally call things. You have to kind of know what you have to send it, and you have to know what you're going to get back. Okay, but that comes with these kind of files. When you, for example, if you found one of these online someplace, it would say, okay, here's how you use this thing. It says they don't call them functions. They call them methods. Okay, but nonetheless, it comes out to the same thing. We'll get into that more deeply later. But basically, what happens is they give you a file, and in that file, there's a bunch of things you can do. And if you simply call the functions in that file, you'll be able to do those things. And that's one of the advantages of this course, because once you learn how to write a little bit of code, you can use those files and do a lot of things that you couldn't normally do unless you knew what they were. Okay, so this one's Lingo, by the way, is the word of it. This one right here, I wrote this one. Lingo.js is mine, but because I was trying to connect up to Google's system without having you go through all the doodads. So basically, Lingo is this thing right here is something that you got to have. That file you have to have in your CS101 if you're running the program from there, or you have to have it if you're going to put your program up online. You have to upload Lingo with it also. Okay, and that's where the problem comes in. Where do you get Lingo? Where does it come from? Okay, well, it turns out that on my website, on the .works website, there's a program, and it's called Snakker. I'm going to write it right here. It's called Snakker, S-N-A-K-K-E-R .html. Snakker.html. Snakker is a program that speaks with many voices, like German, French, whatever, okay? And when you list out Snakker, here's what's going to happen. When you list it out, as you take this program, you hit Control-U, remember how that works, and you list out the program. You're going to see the Snakker program. And here it is right here, the Snakker program. It contains a line just like this one right here, okay? It contains a line up here, blah, 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 and it's going to have Lingo, blah, blah, blah. In other words, this line is going to be in the Snakker program. Now, suppose you wanted to copy the Snakker program to your machine so you could use it. Well, you put your mouse into the thing and you Control-C, Control-A to select everything. That selects everything. And then you hit Control-C, that puts it up on the clipboard. And then you go down to your machine and you open up a notepad, and then you paste that, Control-V, paste that into your notepad. So now you have the program. Save it, give it a name. So in other words, what you've just done is you've taken it from my site and you put it in your local machine and you saved it, okay? But now here's the question. If you ran that program, it still wouldn't run. And the reason why is because it needs this guy, it needs this thing right here to be in your folder also. You don't have that yet. But here's how you get it. Once you copy this, paste it into your local machine, save it in Notepad, then go back up here again, leave this open, go here and just touch that. It's going to be in blue. And when you touch that thing, it will open up and you'll see its code. You'll see how it works. Do the very same thing. Just select it all, okay, and then copy it, and bring it down to your machine into a new notepad and save it in. And this time, save it as this name right here, lingo.js. In other words, you can do the same thing as you normally save it as lingo.js. So what's going to happen in your folder, you're going to have two programs. You're going to have Snakker and Lingo. One of them's going to say snakker.html, the other one's going to be lingo.js. They're both in the same folder, though. Now when you run Snakker, when you click on it twice, it'll open up and it'll give you something equivalent to this, except it'll have several languages, okay? So in other words, this piece of code right here this is the include file. To get the include file, you have to do it the same way as you do with a normal file to bring it down. Every file like that I give you will be on my site, on our website, and you basically just have to call for it. That's all. It's .works.com/snakker.html. That's all you have to do. Okay? Is that clear? Is that okay for everybody? I also have a video that explains it, and I show you how to do it, so there won't be too much complication. Okay, so at this point in this program, what I've done is I've opened up the possibility of speaking with many accents. Now what I want to do is I want to have the users take advantage of it by having this appear on the screen, so they can press that and press that. So to begin with, I need a JavaScript program, and I'm going to put source, whoops, I'm sorry, script, pardon me. Script, my language right here. Script, language equals JavaScript. Okay, I'll get rid of this stuff because we don't need it anymore. Get it out of the way. Let me write the code that makes this page right here. Okay, before I do anything else, I'm going to write the front. This is the front. I'm going to write the front so we can see what the HTML is. So if there was body right here, for example, I'm not going to put body here. Hang on. I'm going to put it down a little bit. Body right here. Okay. Right here. Now, here's where it gets interesting. When the body of the program comes on, the way JavaScript works, or actually the way HTML works, is it loads the files, loads the entire HTML file as soon as you run it, it loads it in, and then it goes back to the body and runs the program. In other words, what it does is it loads everything in, and then it bounces back to the word body and it starts to run your program. In case you wondered how that works. In other words, when you say, I want to run banana.html, what will happen is banana.html will come into your machine, but it has to load in. It takes a few instances to load it in. And then the thing jumps back to body and begins to run your program. That's how it works. So in other words, body is the first thing that happens when the program runs. That's what's going to happen. Now, I have to tell you that, these little caveats here. As programming languages get more sophisticated, people find more clever ways of doing stuff, and all kinds of weird things happen. For example, there are people who write their JavaScript right down here in the body. They write it in the body. They write the JavaScript right in here. You can do that. I don't want to do that, though, because the intention of JavaScript is not to do that. So basically, I'm actually taking advantage of it as a language. I'm saying HTML and CSS can do everything to set up the page. We don't care about that. Anything in the body on down is up to CSS. If we want to run something in JavaScript, okay, it should be put out of the way where people can't see it up above in the head of the program. So essentially, if you see programs that show body and then show JavaScript down here, sorry, that's the way a lot of people do things. They get geeky about it. There's no one that's more geeky than programmers. They're the most geeky people you'll ever meet in your life. They'll do anything, distort, twist, change. Their intelligence just keeps forcing them. It's like a neurosis or something. They have to keep doing it. And they do. Each language that I've used, and I've used probably 50 languages in my life, every one of them has gotten contorted as time went on into worse and worse, until finally you have to be a scientist to figure out what they're saying. But so just follow my instructions, and I'll try to avoid all that stuff for you, so you don't get tangled up in complicated coding. Okay, I try to keep it simple. Okay, so first of all, you write down script languages JavaScript. That means you're going to write JavaScript in here, and you're going to write the body over here. Now here's what happens. It turns out that when you have a program like this up above, sometimes you can just start to use it. You can just start saying, do that function, do this function, do the other function, and it begins to work right away. It's there. Other times, something weird happens. Other times, in this program itself, there is a function that sets stuff up and gets it ready for you to talk to it. In other words, you have to go up there and you have to say, okay, get this all set up for me, will you? And it does. It does its own little thing up there in itself, and it gets it all set up. And then what happens is when you run it, it will start to run. Now here's what happens. I want to go up there ahead of time, and I want to set up what languages I'm going to talk and all kinds of stuff. I want it to actually do something for me. So what I do is, immediately when the thing loads in, it jumps to the body, and immediately I want to go up to that function, up to that file up there, and I want to run the first function, which is one that we don't need. It's not going to do anything for us, but it's going to set it up to work for us. Okay. So here's how you do that. There's a command. It's called onload right here. Onload. And that means once the whole program is in your machine, go back to here and it says onload, do this. Here's what it does. You say onload. I want to go to a function which is it's up in here, and it's called talk to me. To me, like this. Talk to me. And then I can go like that. Okay. I have have some other things here. In the program I have in front of me that you see online, there's some more stuff over here. It changes the background color and does other stuff. But this is the critical one right here. Talk to me. I made it all one word, all one block, like that. Okay. Now, and I think, unless I'm mistaken for any reason. Oh, it's a function, sorry. I did make a mistake. I gotta watch out with my typos here. It's got that thing. It's a function. You gotta open and shut those parentheses. That's critical. Because we're calling a function. So here's what we're saying. We run our program, which is called, whatever we call it, Snocker or whatever. We run the program. It loads the program in, and it starts to run the program. The first thing it hits is this thing. It says, oh, call that function before you even start. And that function's up in here, because it knows it's there, because that's listed up there. So it goes up there, and it says, get Lingo ready to do what we're going to do. And you don't have to worry about what it does. It does a bunch of stuff. Okay, but you do have to do that first. That's critical. You have to get up there and get it ready to go. Okay, then, next thing I do is I create this big text area right here. Now it's centered. As you know, I have to go, I might as well do it because we're doing this. Okay, we'll do this. So what you do is you say style over here equals text align colon center. And then unquote, and then that guy right there. I hope the camera picks that up because yeah, it will, because they won't know what goes there. Mine doesn't work. Okay, so there we have unload. So the first thing that happens is body unload goes up, it sets us up, and then it says, oh, we're going to be centered. So these guys will all be centered right here. Next thing I want to do is I want to put some, put a text area here. That looks like this. I'm going to read it because if I forget even one thing, you guys will be in trouble. That's the name of the text area. Don't forget, each thing that you input area has a name for it, so you can talk to it from the function. Okay. Then I said it's 50 columns. 50. And it has 10 rows. And blah, blah. I don't care about this other stuff. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut this down right here. And I'm going to say, right in this spot right here, whatever. I'm going to write slash text area. Like so. Okay. Now, I'll probably put a couple of returns here just to get it to drop down. So here's what happens. The text area opens. It's got a name, say this. And it's got columns 50 and rows 10. And what that does is for you, it creates this thing right here, this big area that you can type into. And the name of that thing is say this. It's called say this. It's got a name, say this. So when I send it up to the function, I send say this up to the function. That's what I send. And all the words that are in here go up to the function. So there we have that. And then what we do is we're going to have a couple of buttons here. So I hit a break, which we're going to bring us down to the next line. So if I type in the French button right here, I would type in an input, which is a button, input, type equals button. Its value equals, French. And on click, that's the part right there, then you say on click. Equals, quote, we want to go to that function. Oh, we haven't got the function yet. Sorry about that. Let me write the function in, then we'll know where we're going to go. This function is going to be called, say this. Now notice the word say underscore this. That's different than this one down here. Say this right here is just one blob. That's the name of it. This say this is different. It's a different variable because it's got a line. It's a different variable. Okay, just happens to look have the same words in it. I could have put anything here. You can put any, as long as you're consistent. As long as, like down here, if you're going to go to say this. Oops. As long as you're going to go to say this over here and opens, then this has got to be the same as that right here. That's all you have to do for sure. That to be the same. Okay.
The on-click down there, is that just right after the?
Yeah, it's right after French, a space.
With one space?
Yeah, one space, yeah. All the on-click, these input button lines all look exactly alike. They're always the same, it's just that, one blackboard rules them all and all that. Anyway, okay, so we got, when I send it up, I have to send two things up. Now I'm going to tell you what two things I'm going to send up. When I press this button right here, this is the French button, it says French on it. So when I press the French button, what it does is it sends up whatever words you typed in here, I want to send those up to the function. And I also want to tell it, the function, which language are we going to talk in. And FR represents French. FR is the one is a special code they use for French. So therefore, what will happen is when I press this button right here, I'm going to send up the text area whose name is say this. I'm going to send that up, and then I'm going to say comma send up quote FR unquote. So it's going to send two things: what the words are and what language we want it to be said in. Okay, that's what happened. Well, I'm going to when it ends up here. What I do is I receive the thing, and I call the first thing phrase. Notice that's what they said. Comma. The first thing is, that's going to be say this. That's what's going to be in there. The words they said is going to be in there. And the second thing we're going to have is, let's see if I wrote this that way. Yes, I did. And I said, what accent? What accent? And this is, that's it. That's how this thing works. So in other words, two variables arrive. One of them's called phrase, and the other one's called what accent. So naturally, from down here, I have to send up the phrase, which is say this. The dot value, I send that up. Comma. And then, if I'm not mistaken, we have to say one quote, FR. Finish that quote right there. Now notice one thing here. This is very important. See this double quote mark here, which has to come up at the end over here. You don't want to put a double quote in between two quotes. So in other words, what I did is I used the double quote to open this up over here. Now watch, I'm going to end it over here. I use the double quote on this thing here, which has to have a double quote. But if I have to put another, like a literal in here, you can't use a double quote because you're already surrounded by double quotes. It'll confuse everything. It doesn't count them. It's really pretty dumb. So just use a single quote on anything that you have to put, if you have to put a phrase in, an actual phrase. So in other words, this right here is a variable. It says whatever's in this is what I'm sending up. This one right here is I'm sending the actual letters F and R. I'm sending them up as a variable. Okay? So when it gets up here, this here has got an FR in it. This thing over here has all these words that you typed in it. So it has two different pieces of information. Okay, and then what we do is that's the end of the on-click. And then I simply say, that's it. Job done. Okay. Pretty sure I'm good there. Yep, good. That's good. The second button, the first one said French. Now we want to do German, so I put another button down here. Input. Type. Equals. It's a button also. This time its value equals German, because we have the word German right there. Now you can put Hessian or Kraut or anything you want, but basically that's your word. You pick the word you want to put there, whatever. Believe it or not, that is the word German. Even though it looks like some weird contortion. That's the word German right there. And then I'm going to say on-click. This time equals, I'm going to the same function. I'm going up to here, same place, say this. Open it up. send the same phrase, whatever's up in here, I want to just send out, say this, dot value, sending it up, that same phrase, whatever it is, comma, and this time, let me see what the German one is DE, it's for Deutschland. So you say, quote, DE. And by the way, don't forget, everything should be in lowercase unless they tell you otherwise. Even the FR is in lowercase. Everything's in lowercase unless they say otherwise. All my writing, okay? So this DE and FR are both lowercase, same thing. And then you close it, oh sorry, one quote, two quotes out here, finish it off, and that's it. So now what you have is this, and this. All those are there. This is the text area, this is the French, and this is the other button, German. There they are, right there. And then down at the bottom, you can say, slash body and slash HTML. That's it. That part of the program's done. The question is, what do we do up here? At this point, does everybody see how that works right there? You see it's got two buttons, it's got a text area, and we send the information up. Okay. Now when it comes up here, here's what happens. What we have to do now is, I've set up, in this Lingo.js right here, I've set up a function that actually will do all the work for you. You send it the phrase, you send it which language you want it in, and it says it for you. That's all you have to do, just send it that information. Okay? And the program, the function that I used is called, with accent. That's the name of the program up there, the function up there. What you send it is, you send it that phrase, whatever they said, comma, and whatever the accent was. Like so. Close. Slash script. Slash head. Pretty easy program, huh? Program is function itself will get one call on it, that's all it has. Easy breezy. And so when you run the program, here's what happens. This thing comes up here, it's blank. You type something in, blah, 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 blah. And now, say this has some stuff in it. And then you click the French button. When you click the French button, here it is right here, it says, okay, send up the blah, 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 and the letters FR. So they land up here. This is what you said, this is what you typed in, and this is the FR. Then it comes down here and it says, go to this special program, which is located up here, the function, and give it this phrase and give it this accent, FR. And then it will just say it for you with a French accent. Pure and simple. If you press the other button, it'll say it for you with a German accent, because it comes up the same phrase, comes up with a German accent, and says it that way. Does that make sense? So it's really quite simple to do, and that's how you use the program that allows the computer to synthesize the voice to you. Okay. Now, I've only got two languages here. On the demonstration program, I have 5 languages, and I also have an American and a British accent, just to show you the difference between the two. The American says that they sort of flop all over it. Then the British has got this big dignified way of saying the same words. Kind of funny, really. And so there you got this this program that's able to. Now, you may think, well, what would I want to use that for? I added a little note on the website. Some school in Maine was going to hire a teacher, so they got the money for the teacher. And instead of getting the teacher, they got Rosetta, which is one of these kind of programs, only it's very sophisticated. And they bought Rosetta for a huge amount of money to replace the language teacher to teach French and whatever, Spanish, I guess. And so this is actually an age coming. It's actually getting better and better. Now, here's one thing I want to bring up right away. If you wanted to translate something, for example, if you wrote something in English right here, and you wanted to translate it into German, it turns out there is a function up in Google that you could actually use to say translate, do it. But I think Google charges for it. I think they charge you per unit of time or something like that. So I'm not going to go that way, but I can show you how to get the stuff if you want to. So for example, you could type something up here and you could say French, and it would say it in French instead of in English. Hit German, it would say it in German instead of English. In other words, it would send this thing to Google and say, translate for me. It would do that for you, okay? But that's not something we're going to do in this class. That reaches too far beyond our ability because there's money involved. You can only get into money. But, and I don't even know how much, because if they charge a penny a word, that can get pretty expensive pretty quick. If you put like, a chapter or something in, that'd be a lot of money. So you don't want to get into that, whereas Google Online is free. Google Translate Online is free, and I'll show you how to use that. And I also will show you how to get information from here to Google Online, translate it, bring it back, and have it said in a foreign language. You can do those things there. Because you get copy and paste. Copy and paste is wonderful. You can do stuff like that, move stuff around. Okay, and that's the first program I want to talk, and that's the one that talks to you. Now I want to talk about the program where you talk to it, and it hears you, and it can do anything. But what I do, I have it write out the words that you say in text. It just writes them out, okay? That proves that it can hear what you say. Now, this is a little gimmick I've come up with. It turns out that these things aren't perfect. Sometimes you'll say something and it won't quite get what you say. All of these things, it's your own, microphone or whatever, background noise. So it doesn't quite get what you want. But if you say something and you look at it and it repeats exactly what you said, you know it understands you. It's like having some old geezer you're talking to, and you say, so you say, 35, and he goes, 35? It's like saying it back to you to be sure that he caught it, see? And the advantage of that is that when you say something to it, you do know what's going on. Now, I wrote a program that does trigonometry like that. They can say a tangent of 45 degrees, like that, for example, and it'll go in, it hears the word tangent, it hears the word 45, here's the degrees, and it figures it out and gives you the answer. Okay, but the trouble was, if I said tangent of 40 degrees, it would say, tangent of, 45 something or others. It could completely miss it. I mean, it said all kinds of crazy things you'd never believe it says. It didn't understand a word you said, or it jams them together. And another thing it does, sometimes it makes capital letters and small letters. It does all kinds of complicated things. So your program has to be very careful so that when you say it, you see it on the screen exactly as you said, and then it gives you the answer. That way you're safe. And that's why I added that line. I always add that line in, of a verification line, okay? It's not part of the program, it's just part of what I think is necessary to do it. So let me show you how to do this. I want to just intercept with one more thing. Online they put a master list of all the code that we used so far, each instruction and what it does, okay? It's handy in the sense if you want to get the exact, what the syntax looks like. It's not handy in that it doesn't show you how to use that code. So what happens is, every program I put in uses some of this code. So in other words, there's a program for every bit of the code that we use. So you can actually look at a program to see how it's done. I think I'm going to do this week coming. I'm going to put up a list of programs, and each one's going to use some of the code. And if you want to know how to use this, you just go to this program. If you want to use that, you go to that program. And it will show you the code used. So that way, that's the way I learn best, is I see it in action, and I know how to do it. Okay. Next one. Let me just get rid of this here. This program here is going to, you're going to talk to it. It's not going to talk to you. You're going to talk to it. And when you talk to it, it will try to understand what you're saying, and it will write the words. The first thing I'm going to do is we're going to write the words on the screen, say this is what you said. But I'll tell you what I use it for a lot. It's kind of fun. Is I'll do graphics, which we'll do in the class. Graphics. You can have a couple of objects on the screen. You can say the box go left, and it'll start going to the left. You can say tree go right. You can move the tree to the right, up and down, do whatever you want. Notice you can tell things what to do because you can say them, and the thing understands your words. And then you use a simple index of, and you can see if you said left or right or up or down or whatever, or rotate or whatever. And all of these words you can look for, and basically you can make objects on the screen move around just by voice command. Just say do this, do that, do the other thing. They'll all move around, do whatever you want. That's only cute. That's not a program that's valuable in itself. But what it does is it shows you that this voice control actually is very handy. It's quite good, really, that you can actually direct things around. I got a couple of programs, three-dimensional programs, that cubes and spheres and stuff like that, to move all over the place. You can tell them what to do, tell them when to rotate, when not to rotate, all kinds of things. And it's kind of interesting because it changes the interface that you're normally used to, where you have to type stuff in and you have to do it that way. Okay, so now this program here also uses one of these guys. It has a source also. It doesn't use this one. So in other words, this is one where I call it listener because it listens to you. It listens to what you say, okay? So I gave this name listener, quote, listener.js. Listener.js, that's an include file that you have to bring in, okay? Now, there's a program that they're called listen, listen.html, which uses this. It's actually going to be the program I'm going to write right now, pretty close to it. No, it's called listen up, sorry, error. Probably listen up here too, there's probably both of them. The listenup.html is a program that has this basic code in it. And what listenup will do for you is you can do Control U, and you can see what it looks like. You can copy it down to your machine, put it in your machine. And then you then you click on this thing right here. You're going to see the code. Click on it. It's blue. It'll open up into its code. Select that, bring it down, copy it into another notepad, call it listener.js, save that. So now in your CS, you have the two essential programs. You have the program called Listen Up, which you can open and run, and you have Listener, which it talks to Listener. It needs that code to run. So they'll both be in there, and they both run fine, okay? And you'll be able to do one where you can talk to the machine, and it will actually, this is in your machine, by the way. If you want to run this online, you can do that. You can just run this online, okay? The one thing it does do, if you run it online, let's see, does it still do that? Even if you run it in your machine, it may do it. What it may say to you is, do you want to turn your microphone on? It's a security thing. So the person has to physically say, turn the microphone on. Let me tell you something, though. This is a good time to do it because we're in this discussion right now. If you use a program that turns on your microphone or your webcam, okay, from that point on, it's a very insecure situation because you don't know when your webcam's on. That light can be off and the webcams still be on because they have it controlled by program rather than by hardware. So basically what happens is, if you have a webcam in your machine, if you use it for anything, anybody could have captured the combination and you're there, you're open. And as I say, the light doesn't have to be on, so they could actually be watching you, listening to you, whatever, and you wouldn't have any idea. So that's the problem with using these things. They're always subject to somebody coming into your living room, listening to you and watching you. You should have a physical thing to cover some kind of physical thing to cover your webcam. The voice thing's another thing entirely because if your microphone's on, that's even worse. The stuff you say is probably worse than what it can see because it can hear everything in the room, whatever anyone says, telephone answering, whatever. So your security is really infringed on by these commands. The trouble is that we don't have them. We can't communicate with each other. We don't have anything to work with, so we've got to, something has to give. Okay, here we go. First thing is, this line right here, it has to have listener.js. Can everybody read that? That's listener.js right there. Okay. Next, what do? I bring in the JavaScript language. And the function I built here is called listen. I'm going to write the function first this time. Now it's interesting. What happens is, because of the fact that in this particular case you're talking to the machine, there is no input. See, the input is actually, it's listening to you. Once I turn the microphone on, it has its own input. You have nothing to do with it anymore. You say blah, blah, blah. okay, and it picks it up and does something with it. Sometimes you don't have to have an in-one, you don't have to have a place where you press a button anymore because you don't need a button. It's basically, it's just going to start listening to you. Okay, in this particular program, and there may be programs where you want to have a button, but not on this one. Okay, so what you do is you open it up. By the way, did I put these in the last one? I can't remember, did I put these in?
Yeah.
The top and bottom, okay. Don't want to miss those, because they're very important when I write this stuff. Okay. This function right here must have the name listen. It has to have the name listen. Okay, because you're not calling it. It's not one that you're calling. What's happening is you say something, Google translates it into words, and then it calls listen. It comes into your machine, back to your machine by calling listen. And that's where you deal with the words that it sends back to you. What you said is listened by the microphone, takes that away to Google. You don't have to do anything. But Google has to tell you what the words are that you're going to put on the screen. So it comes back to listen and says, here's the word. When it arrives at listen, it has the words located. Okay? It says my words, and it's in transcription. That's the magic word. Transcription is a variable from Google. Okay? And what happens is when I say blah, 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 what it does is it comes back to listen, and it gives me this word, this transition here, which contains the words I just said only in text format. It's a text now. So what I do is I transfer this transcription to my own variable. Now, here's why I do that. I want to be sure you understand what happens here. Transcription is one of Google's variables, and they're futzing around with it. They keep changing it, trying to figure. They said, if I say hello and it says below, and then it says, oh, hello, it corrects it. In other words, it looks at a lot of background data and determines what you're actually saying. But it may make a mistake in the first couple of flitters through it. So what happens is, while they're changing this transcription here, getting it correct, we don't want to interfere with it by trying to do something to it at the same time, because we're both talking to this same thing at the same time. Very bad. So what I do is, when I come into this function, I immediately put that in my own variable, then I can play with this one. Okay, I don't have to worry about what theirs is flittering around, but I got this one I can deal with. Does that make sense to you? In other words, you don't want to have two things talking to the same variable at the same time. Okay, that's not a good thing in a computer. So what happens is I take whatever they think it says and I put it into my words over here, and then I continue on. The first thing I do is I say out one, which is not a button, it's just a place to put stuff. This is where I'm going to put the words that are located in here. My words right here. And that's the whole thing, that's the entire function. So the function is written. Here's what happens. Over here, someplace, I have to turn on this listener. I say, listen to me, and then I say, there's no input. I just say blah blah blah, and immediately that blah 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 is picked up immediately by the microphone, and it's brought up to Google. It goes up to Google, and it comes back as these printed words right here, which goes to here, which then I send to my out value right here. So here's what you have on the screen. Here's what you see on the screen. Wait a minute, sorry. This doesn't exist anymore. Get all this stuff out of here. What we have now is, let's see what I do. I have any input. I have this thing right here. That's the words that comes back from Google. And a wake up button. I have this button over here that says wake up. Okay, I put this button here. Here's what the wake up button does, because Google doesn't want us to be on all the time. It let us play with it a bunch of times, and all of a sudden you realize it's not listening to you anymore. And when you say wake up, it goes up and reestablishes the connection, and then you can keep talking to it, okay? The easiest way to do that, though, I have to tell you the honest truth, the easiest way to do that is not to hit the wake up button. That takes a little bit of time for the programming to take place. What I normally do is I just hit that little circle thing up there, refresh the screen, and it starts right off again. Does that make sense? Because when you refresh the screen, the program starts out fresh. It's still listening to you. Okay, that's much better. So over here, you got body. And don't forget, in the body, because you have to get stuff ready. Let's see if this one requires getting stuff ready. I think it does. Yes, it does. You got an onload in there. Again, what that does is when the program first starts, it has to go up here and set stuff up for us. Okay, it gets it ready to listen to us. Equals recognizer. And these are listed in our, like it's center here. Oh, you know, in style equals, style equals, let me just move that down here. It's too stupid this way. The next line of this says style. Equals, do we center it? Text line center, okay. That's it. Okay. And then I have to have the L1 where they're going to put the words, where the words are going to go. So I have an input area, and its ID equals L1. And that's where the answer goes right here. That's where the words go. The type equals text. In this case right here, what I did is I set up a style for it. Oops, style. Yeah, okay, equals. Oh, what did I give it? I give 30 font size. Okay, font colon. Sorry about that. Font size. There's a minus right in there. Font size colon. I call it 35 points. I'll have to talk to you about that. Points. The point system is an old printing thing. Points is like little teeny dots I used to use to make font in a printing press. Okay, and it's smaller than a pixel. It's very tiny. So it takes a lot of points to make a letter of a normal size. But 35 points, you can use anything you want there. If you use pixels, you can pick a pixel size, whatever size, I just pick the size, that's all, just to do it. And I gave it a width, semicolon, then I gave it a width of 1500. That's pixels. Close it, done. The reason why I gave it a width of 1500 is because when you're talking, you might go across the entire screen. You need a big area because you're talking, you're saying a lot of words, right? So you want to have a place when these words come back where they're going to go. You could, if you want to, you could just build a text area in there. Instead of having Alt1 as an input, you could have it as a text area, build a big text area. So what they would, as you talk, the whole thing would come out on the screen, on the text area. And just use the text area from the previous program. Okay, so that takes care of that. That's all one line, by the way. The Alt1's all one line. And it's got to have a button. This button right here is that right there, wake up. That's in case the thing goes to sleep. Here's what you got to do. You have an ID equals, I call it, yeah, I call it button stop WS. Button stop WS. Quite honestly, I did this a long time ago. I'm not sure if this is required, that name, but use that name to be certain because it seems to be in all my programs. I think when I first figured out how to do this, I think that was a name that they actually know the button name. And so they wanted to listen for that button. Type equals button. Button. Like I say, the code on the board here is not as valuable as the equivalent code online, which I have listed for every day. Because I know that works, I run it. This thing I have to run. And that's it. 1500, that's it. And then I put down slash body slash HTML. There it is. So, here's what this program looks like. It starts off, it's got this special listener in here. And right off the bat, when you want to load, you go up there and you get a recognizer, gets it running, gets it going for you. Okay. What it does is basically turns on the microphone. It might say something to you, by the way. It may have a little box come and say, do you want me to turn your microphone on? Hit yes. Go for it. Take the risk. and then start talking. Now, if nothing comes up in the box, it means your microphone may be turned off by you. So what you do is you have to go, do not turn your microphone on. Right at the bottom of your screen, the right-hand bottom of the screen, there's a picture of a loudspeaker. Right-click on that, I believe, maybe it's left-click, but the thing that says input devices. Click on that, then it'll give you a microphone, and then tell the microphone's loudness to be out. Make sure it's on. Or just follow the rules there, whatever they say. They might be different for different systems. But basically, that's it. That program will now listen to you. So whatever you say, it'll write on the screen. If you wait a few seconds to say, if you keep talking, it'll keep talking. If you say something and you stop and say something else, it'll go right over it. It'll replace it. That's how it works. This is a very simple program. This is the easiest program of this type to write. As you can see, it only has a couple of things in it. Not much going on here. But very, very powerful. You can do a lot of stuff with these programs. Okay. So I think it's free. Why don't I turn off the camera and show you a couple of the programs they have online. You can ask me any questions that you have about them, okay? Regarding these two things. Let's do it. Take a second if you want to take a break for a second now. Give me a battery alarm here. Yeah.
Wait, there isn't like a text box for this or anything?
So what?
For that HTML just made, there's no like text box or, like there's no like box for all the speech?
You see the box?
There is no box.
There was no box? Hang on a second. Let me see. I'll run on my machine and see what happens. You're on a PC?
Okay.
You ran a listener? Or listen up, listen up?
Let's not.
Let me try to run it and see what happens.
Because we're gonna have those lingo and stuff on here, right?
Huh?
We have to have the lingo.js and the listener.js on our computer, right? But
You have no. If you're running the one online, it's got everything. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. Mine has a little box, or actually has a big long box and a little
It's
button,
got the long box, yeah, that's what you want.
and a little tiny button on
The button, okay, start talking, can I hear you?
I don't know, is
Turn
it
your
supposed to
microphone
start
on.
typing?
What's he talking to?
Is it the one that you just wrote, or is it?
Yeah, it's the one we just wrote.
Then that, you probably don't have the folder downloaded.
How authenticated? Can they start advertising at me? Okay. Shut this down for a little bit.
Just be able to start running this ability.
Turn this thing off, I think.